we just practiced an instructional data review meeting to be able to model how this might go and what it might look like, how it might flow, and wanted to kind of describe for you all the different forms and how those play into it. So we have the instructional data review checklist that talks about what you need to do and think about before the meeting, and then how you run those during the meeting, including a projected agenda that you could follow. You did have the other one that has the guided questions in there. I just have those all in one document in case you are kind of stuck and want to think about how to elicit some conversation from the group. The other thing I used and created and would be willing to share is this document. So then we were able to have all the different groups for that grade level on this document with the guiding questions at the top. So are they making adequate lesson progress, adequate session minutes, have they had adequate mastery, and then are there any core enhancements that are needed? And then this also allowed us to zero in, is there anything we need to problem solve for the group over on the side, or on the bottom, any of those specific elements, if there's maybe a procedural or a logistical piece that we need to zero in on and improve our practices. And the group really thought this helped make the meeting flow. They truly understood more of what we were doing and how, and it allowed us to look at all the groups first using group data before we then zeroed in and got lost in the shuffle of problem solving and troubleshooting, but then we ended up having enough time for all of that, which was great.
Just nice. Finagle some things around.
Well, welcome to our first instructional data review meeting, and in case you don't remember, I am your principal, Mrs. Principal today, and so the purpose of these meetings is really to have it be a collaborative problem-solving opportunity for us to think about what do we need to be doing for all students, what did we say we were going to do in September at our screening team meetings, and make sure that we are doing those and we're following up, and if there's any kinks, how can we problem solve that? And then thinking about looking at group data first, so whether that be specific intervention groups, whether it's for the class or for the grade level, what do we need to be doing to making sure the group is making the progress we need before we are making decisions about individual students come the next data review meeting. The norms we established for our group were to be hard on ideas, soft on people. We know there's a lot of things that might involve an individual person, but really it's about what are we going to do for our students. So really having that collaborative mindset, and just once an idea is on the table, it's on the table, not a person's idea. We're going to stay focused to the agenda. We're going to be mindful of time and have shared responsibility. Does everyone still agree with those norms?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. So rules for today, I'll be facilitating, taking a bunch of notes also on the screen. You'll be able to see that. Amber, you were going to be looking up the intervention documentation logs and progress monitoring, and teachers have been progress monitoring too, so they might be pulling those up. Janelle, you're going to be helping with the attendance and accountability logs, the AALs, and any intervention notes. And now and then classroom input obviously is going to be very important, and about their guided reading, about full group. And then Kristen, you also volunteered to be timekeeper, so if you can give us a 10-minute and a 5-minute warning before the end. And then any other notes that you guys think are relevant to keep track of, any to-dos that we want to make sure we review at the end before our next data review meeting, because that might be where we start those meetings next time. So in terms of the agenda, we have it up here, but also right in front of you. We are just going to be going through this checklist. We've already established the norms and the purpose for the meeting. We're going to be identifying and problem solving for student groups, and then if there's any mastery issues, and then for the whole group. Then, like I said, we'll troubleshoot, do some problem solving, and review for any to-dos for the next meeting. So here's that, and then in order to help facilitate this process, I've put all the 3 groups for 2nd grade on the left-hand column. We'll kind of go across to get a big picture first of, are we having adequate progress for the groups first? And then we can do any problem solving if it's for a specific element that maybe we just need to tweak a procedure or a schedule thing, or if there's any problem solving we need for the group, if they're having mastery issues or something like that. So I know I've already seen the AELs for the reading mastery group, so I went ahead and put that in. The minutes were marked, so can we just identify when are they being pulled, when are they coming back?
They're being pulled during block 4.
Okay.
It is.
And it's, that happened right away at the beginning of
Yes.
Rockport, okay.
Mhm.
And then when did they come back?
Right at the end of
Okay.
October. I have,
And they usually come on their own. We always have somebody that's
Oh, good.
on the way to get them,
Yeah.
usually, but they've been coming, is that easy?
Mikey always
Mikey's
remembers,
good.
Oh, good.
and then
Okay.
he grabs all of his buddies in both rooms.
Perfect. That's great, so taking responsibility for that. And then about how long would you say the transition time is from getting there to here?
They're always right on,
Okay.
right on the spot. I know I mentioned I'm having trouble keeping track of the minutes.
Mhm.
With that group especially, that's kind of the last thing on my mind, because we have some behavior issues, and so
Sure.
that's kind of on my mind. I start the timer, and then like 90 minutes later, I'm like, oh, I forgot to turn it off.
Right.
So
Sure.
if anybody has any tips or helpful hints for me about that would be great.
Maybe you
And
can
it's-
have Mikey.
I was just
so
gonna
you-
say.
Oh, that is a
He
good
probably
idea.
would remember.
Mhm.
And that's probably
You
not
would.
just for
The whole
this
group
group.
would probably remember.
Is that just kind of a procedural?
It is, it's just kind of a procedural thing I'm having
So-
trouble with. I just get going and either forget to turn it on, forget to turn it off, so.
Okay.
I understand
Let's table that and we'll come back to some problem solving for that. Does that work?
But putting Mikey in charge of that, that would be awesome.
Sure. There were no mastery checks, but have there even been any opportunities for remastery?
No, we haven't
mastery checks?
gotten,
Okay.
no, we haven't gotten far enough.
I figured that. There is progress monitoring data already, and they're both showing some impressive growth, but there's a high number of errors, so we know that's an issue we want to keep zeroing in on. In terms of core, has guided reading started for them?
Yes.
Okay, and how many days a week?
With my kiddos that are up there for the interventions, it's 5 days a week.
Yeah,
Okay.
me too.
And then are those 15-minute, 20-minute, how?
15.
15-minute groups, okay.
Sometimes they go to 20 though, because
Okay.
I'm willing to push some other groups because they need it more.
Sure. Okay. Good differentiation there. And then the Sound Partners group with Jack and Caleb. This is with an EA, so maybe if we pull out the AALs and kind of look at that as a group, sometimes you can have it pre-established and sometimes we're gonna be doing it here in the meeting. Maybe
Yeah, Judy's.
has one set over and then start. So, that expectation is 5 lessons in 6 days. So far we're needing to maybe think about ways that we can tighten that up or.
There
make
were,
it a couple-
sorry Karen.
Yeah, go for it.
A couple days that there were 2 lessons
Oh,
done in a
okay.
day, and I didn't take that into consideration. And then there was one day that,
It was
So-
broken up.
yeah,
Okay.
So that's not
we probably
quite
got through like
accurate.
17 lessons in 20 days.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. And then, minutes, is it tracked on that one?
This one does not have the minutes tracked on there.
And then what about this group? Are they being pulled at the right times? Are you seeing a lag?
Yep,
They're all the same
they all
exact
come
Oh, they all
together.
all of them.
Oh, great, okay.
Yeah, so Mikey
So
does
that's
all of those.
really helpful.
That is wonderful. And are mastery checks yet for Sound Partners? It was on there?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Looks like there were, would that be what they've called testing, Janelle?
No, that was probably the
was that
screening.
something
day.
like
So it's
okay.
on that bottom,
Oh, mastery test, there's
Yep.
one.
okay? And then does it say
On the ninth.
how students performed?
One error.
One
See
error.
that?
One error, okay.
Oh, and yeah, you know what, I didn't grab the actual test, I'm sure I could find it in the file, because they're filing those for us.
And
So what day was that, so I could look at Caleb?
Mastery test was the 19th.
And they're probably getting
Oh, 0 errors,
closer
too.
to 40 minutes then. Because if we look at the intervention matrix, what is expected for Sound Partners intervention is 30 minutes 4 to 5 times a week. So we're meeting the
Yeah, they're
required
definitely
minutes
getting
there.
that. The only thing about the minutes that I would say is that, these 2 little guys are kind of a handful. And so we have had to problem solve just, I mean, in here, nothing we really need to
Mhm.
involve anybody with, but problem solve some behavior
Mhm.
kinds of issues,
Okay.
especially with Jack.
Okay.
So if there are minute issues, I'd say it wouldn't be like a beginning and ending time.
Sure.
It's more of a
During.
during the lesson. He gets kind of ornery and doesn't want to follow directions.
Sure.
And
And this is, some partners have a mastery test, I believe, every 10 lessons, so
Okay.
it sounds like they've done the only one
Yep.
that they've needed to
Mhm.
so far. What about guiding for the Jack and Caleb group? Are they in the same group or
They're in the
different
same group.
groups? Okay, and that's how often?
Every day.
Okay.
So that's 15 minutes.
Okay. And any issues with that group or anything you're
Well,
really
staying
zeroing
on
in
task obviously is something we're working on.
Okay.
They can get off pretty easily. And, yeah, so that's pretty much what we're
Okay.
doing.
Any other kids in that group?
Yes,
Okay.
it's group of 4.
Okay. And then the Kane Keegan Sound Partners group, I saw you starting to look at the ALs, were you able to?
Yes, and you know what, that's one where that wasn't a group that was together since like that
Okay.
day 6, and so.
So we can just look since the
Um,
screening meetings.
Yeah, let's see. Let's start with Keegan, because he would have been the one that was new. So started on the 13th.
You wanna help
What
keep
am I-
track of the total
Yep.
days?
What am
we
I,
count?
what am I
Okay.
counting?
So the number of, lessons that were completed over the total number of days.
Not the days, not the, okay.
Well, she can kinda keep track of
It
the
started with
days.
lesson 31,
Okay.
okay, and we've got 1, 2, 3. They might be at like 10 days.
Okay. 10 lessons or 10 days?
Mhm.
Okay.
Well, 10 days and ended at 37, so.
Okay, so 10 days and
Yeah.
6 lessons.
With that new group, that kind of doesn't surprise me, cause it's a new pair.
Okay. And then, session minutes is all the same, cause they all come the same,
Mhm.
okay. And so they're getting closer to 40 minutes, instead of 30, which is great. We still wanna try and think about how can we keep track of those minutes, cause at some point that might make more of a difference. Mastery test on this group. has
No,
that been
they
done?
haven't gotten to that.
Oh, cause they've only done the 6 lessons, okay.
Yeah, and I think part of that, it looks to me like based on her notes, Keegan just has some things that he's not mastering, so I think she's had to go back and
Okay.
do some reteaching is what it looks like to me, which I guess kind of doesn't surprise me.
Sure, yep, which is what we want too.
Mhm. Yeah. So
So
I expect the pace maybe to pick up a little bit. They're
Sure.
in like those upper 30 lessons, and so things start getting a little more complicated, and I imagine that pace could be an issue. I don't know
And
if we
that's
need to
probably,
keep an eye on that.
yeah, that's an important note too. They started at lesson 31. Did we do a placement test for that? Or
Well,
did we
yeah, I was just gonna
guesstimate or
say, that's where Kane was, and so, yes, we did the placement test, and so that's how we made the group.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
sure,
So
okay.
that's how we did group the kids.
So based on
The
the
placement
student
test.
of, that was the lowest student did his
Yeah.
placement test in the group, okay.
Yeah.
And then they were grouped together, how? Just based on the screening data or because they're in guide ring together, or how were they?
It was based on the placement data,
Okay.
the South Partners placement data. I mean,
Okay.
first, obviously, they qualified, they
Mhm.
had
Sure.
scores, but then we also did the South Partners placement.
Cool, okay. And then, are these two in the same guide ring group?
Yes.
Okay, and then a group of how many?
4.
Okay.
That's Jack, Caleb, Kane.
Oh, those
Oh,
four.
okay.
Oh,
So they're
those
all
four.
four
Oh, well
together.
then that's good, okay. So we'll put same ones above. Any issues with this group that we know of?
Same as the other.
Some on-task issues
On-task
too?
issues.
Okay.
They can all get tested.
Sure.
Yeah, I noticed a note about Kane interrupting himself and others. I thought that was an interesting note,
Good
so
observation.
he can interrupt himself.
Overall, for all of these groups, where would you say you guys are at, in terms of whole group instruction and anything that needs to be enhanced that way?
Well, the whole group we're following to a T as far as what's the core
Okay.
material that all kids are supposed to be receiving.
So you're following the maps?
However,
Okay.
they're gone during that whole group time
Oh,
They're here.
because they're here and reading.
so all of those kids are missing whole group?
All of us are missing whole group.
Okay. Well, I'm glad we figured that out. So
Um,
let's
Can
think
you,
about how we
can you talk about that a little bit,
Yeah.
because the intervention time was supposed to be during, your guided reading time?
Our guided reading is in the afternoon,
Okay.
as it was on the schedule.
Got it. Okay.
part of that confusion was the intervention schedule wasn't shared out as early as I had
Oh, sure.
hoped, and we kind of went after the fact. Ooh, whoops. That didn't get communicated, so they should not. The bottom line is they should not be missing that whole group. So we may need to problem solve that.
Okay, yeah.
Schedule it.
That might be important. And I know some grades, even though it's not ideal, have actually flip-flopped and have their whole group at the end instead of the beginning, which may not be ideal, but they've made it work by doing, more preview for the next day and those kinds of things. So we'll have to get strategic about that. What about in terms of training for each of the intervention groups? How did
For the interventionist?
Yes,
you
sorry,
mean?
for the interventionist.
Oh, yes. They both attended the half-day training that we
Perfect.
did, so I feel pretty good about the training that they went through.
Okay.
And then the day before we started intervention,
Mhm.
restarted interventions, I guess, after the MTSS meeting, I sat down with both Kathy and Judy and we went through, well, the Sound Partners has like a tutor observation or like a quiz or some kind of a self-check kind of thing. So we went through, the three of us, all of those questions and the tips and the reminders, and I know it wasn't an observation, it was more of a self-evaluation, but that was great because they had great questions. They're like, oh, I forgot to implement this part of it, or I have a question about this.
Mhm.
So that was really good. I guess the only next step I would say was with that, it would be nice, maybe to have
observer.
somebody
Mhm.
come in and actually
Yeah.
observe with that tutor.
Absolutely, kind of like a
Checklist.
fidelity check, then so we can say,
Mhm.
hey, here are all the
Mhm.
key points, and outside observers,
Mhm.
and all these things are happening. I love that as a next step.
Well, and they are doing these interventions, we're all
Mhm.
together, and so I can tell you that everybody's
Right,
kind of in
you're hearing.
earshot,
Sure.
and so it's kind of nice. And when they have questions, they're like asking questions on
Sure.
the spot. So
Okay, cool.
I feel better about that part of it than I have in a long time.
Good,
So
cool.
that was really good.
And then what about for reading mastery training?
I have not been through reading mastery
Okay.
training, and so I did go through the corrective reading training, which
Mm-hmm.
I guess you told me previously that there's
Pretty
similar
similar, yeah.
kinds of programs. I've had a few questions along the way, but Kara's been able to help me
Oh, good.
because
She's a local expert.
yeah, and she said, oh yeah, I would love to show you. She's like, she
Yep.
kind of misses doing that. So
Mhm.
yeah, I've had some questions about, we haven't really gotten into that font necessarily, but just sometimes their examples are
Sure.
kind of confusing. Like I'm not really sure how they expect you to say a word
Okay.
slowly. It's written kind of interesting.
Sure.
Um,
Is that something we need to set up, like a specific time for you guys to be able
Well,
to connect?
I
Or have
asked her
observe
early
or-
on if she'd be able to demonstrate a lesson,
Mhm.
and I think now that I've done several of
Mhm.
them, I think that might be nice. I
Okay.
don't know if we could free her up to do that,
I know
but,
she's already doing it with some students.
oh, so
on her
maybe
caseload.
I could go,
Mhm.
I could go watch her, that
Yeah.
would be easier for her.
Yeah, so that way, she's still delivering services, and you can
Mhm.
observe an authentic example.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll put that down on our to-do list to check her schedule.
Okay.
'Cause I'm pretty sure she's already doing that.
Okay, because I didn't approach it that way, so that probably didn't even
Right.
occur to her.
Sure.
So that really would be helpful, just because it's something new I'm doing.
Right. Anything else we need to know about, the progress of the groups before we kind of troubleshoot and do some problems on
We should put up there by Mikey, Lorena,
Mhm.
and Mac that there is an attention issue.
it? Oh, okay.
Because Lorena's constantly looking at a word when we're sounding it out. But then I have Mikey, and then by the time I get Mac, Mikey's gone.
Right, right.
And so it's been a
And
challenge.
juggling.
Yeah.
Okay. So, we could think about how do we beef up some of the lesson progress, and is that through some training, things like that? The procedure for keeping track of minutes. Mastery, I think, maybe just make sure that we have a mastery test by the next student data review meeting to review at the beginning, but
I think
Nothing
I think
necessary.
I looked ahead and I think that's naturally going to
Perfect.
happen. Are those like every 10 or 15 lessons is
about that, yeah.
approximately?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, I think the whole group issue is probably pretty important for us to
Yeah,
spend
that's
our time focusing on.
I think that's probably the biggest one.
Okay.
The only other thing I was gonna check, sorry, was, specifically Mikey's attendance. He has,
He's been gone.
you know what, he has had some absences. And that must have been maybe even before I started the reading mastery, now that I'm looking at
I
it.
know that he got a 5-day letter at least.
Okay, so I just did want to mention that.
Yeah, that'll be important, especially when we're looking at the individual decisions
Right.
too.
But my,
Great.
new 3-day-old behavior management punch card, 3 days old, works pretty good so far, so I'm just saying.
I like that.
Good.
3 days.
So you started,
You just in addition to kind of what they already do, just because
The behavior plan in my room.
yeah, I needed some more specific help about,
Right.
sitting up tall, sitting in the chair,
Mhm.
only talking about the lesson,
Sure.
not
Mhm.
talking about other things.
Mhm.
So I kind of chose some goals kind of specific to
Sure.
our needs
Great.
in here.
that's perfect.
And then I just been transferring the points
Good.
to your charts. And Mac's like, I think that will work.
Sure.
Can you hear him? He's like, oh, that's okay. That's cute.
Could you guys pull up your class schedules and the intervention schedule? And let's start
Okay.
looking at that. We know it's the district expectation that students are getting whole group and, the intervention not in addition to. So, that must have been an oversight, and now it's just a perfect time to dig through that and fix it, so.
So your guided reading is what block? It
Our
must
guided
be
reading is block 7.
7?
Mhm.
Okay.
And whole group is what block, sorry?
Whole group is block 4.
And is it the whole block for that? Okay.
So what about block 3? What are you doing before
Block
that?
3 is writing.
And what
What-
block are they getting pulled? Block 4?
Block 4,
Okay.
intervention, so I had to actually take that and look at it. Block 7 is guided reading?
Yes.
And what's block 6?
Block 6 is our read aloud and our handwriting.
What would be the easiest way? Can you picture a way to rearrange it so that they were not missing?
They're actually gonna have to miss something.
They're going to have to miss something. Yeah, I get that.
Thank you.
On the spot, yeah.
Well, I'm just gonna throw something out there is what I'm thinking. This may not be it, but just to kind of get your ideas flowing. What if you moved writing to the afternoon so that you could do whole group block 3, guided reading block 4, and do,
So then they would be missing guided reading then?
well,
I'd rather them miss read aloud and handwriting than miss guided reading time.
okay, yeah. Because you would still have to see, that brings up a good point. You still need to see them in guided
Yeah.
reading.
Because
Some
I
peop-
have no wiggle room.
Because some people do have to do that
Because
in
I
a
have
block.
my other 2 my 3 are one-on-one instruction for everything. Yeah.
Who's that?
Lorena, Mikey, and Mac.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I'm fine moving writing around. And-
Problem with moving
but
the
I don't want them
intervention
to
block
miss
is,
that.
I'm scheduled in every grade level, in every
Right.
block, and if I move you, then I'd have to move somebody else,
Yeah,
which
it'd be a nightmare for you.
it would be
I know.
a little more complicated. I'm not saying your schedule
Right.
isn't complicated, that's not what I'm saying.
No, I
So,
know.
could you guys, I'm just throwing it out, looking at my notes.
It's on the table.
It's all on the
not-
table.
Not personal.
Flip what you do 4th block and 6th block. So at 4th block, you would do read aloud and handwriting when those students go to intervention, and then 6th block, you would do whole group.
I bet I know why you do read aloud there, though.
Yep, because our kids have to de-escalate.
Use the
It's
restroom.
still,
Yeah.
then it would be right before
But-
guided reading though?
But you know, I could still fit in read aloud when they get back because whole group really doesn't take 40
Right.
minutes.
Mhm.
Right.
And I usually have the kids partner read as part of their daily 5 at that time since we don't
Oh, okay.
prefer that during guided reading because they struggle.
Sure.
Yeah, because it's not
Yeah.
independent.
So I mean, we
enough.
could make that work and try it out.
So we're gonna move.
Whole group
So
to.
still maybe do the
And then move the
read
handwriting
aloud.
here and still do read to self in here, but just move the lesson here.
Do you wanna put that on the screen? It's brown.
It's brown. Okay.
Yeah, I haven't just figured out how to
I'm not
change
reading
it.
for why.
I just feel-
Like, I don't
Oh,
see that.
gotcha.
Oh,
Really?
I tried to fix it, but I.
Okay,
couldn't,
so what we're
that
talking
makes sense.
about is moving all of what's here in whole group down here to the, I mean, granted, we'd have to change the times here,
Right.
because it needs more than just 10 minutes.
Right.
Okay.
But then still use part of this time here for read to someone and move handwriting up here. And we might have to, you know, finagle things a little bit, but we could try it.
And then I guess after implementing that, what I'd like to know at the next data review is how
How's
that.
it going?
How's it going, because I'm sure that they have the same focus and attention issues in whole group, if not more so.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But are you willing to give that a try?
We could try it.
Okay, so let's document that. We're going to switch, let me make sure I'm summarizing this right. Basically,
Black form,
So
black
fourth
six, am I
and
understanding
sixth,
that right?
but still include read
Read.
to self or read to other.
Include
And
read
read
to
aloud.
self in block
Okay.
4 and continue read aloud when they first come into block 6. But kind of play with times there.
Because if they miss that, they are reading to someone else
Mhm.
already in
Mhm.
intervention.
My hope has been to get, I mean, I've been getting through pretty much one reading mastery lesson in an intervention session with them. Compared to another reading mastery where I have one student, and it literally takes me 10 to 15 minutes.
Sure.
So my hope was kind of that we could get that down a little bit better so that we could even add part of that read to, so that at least
Right.
they could have a little bit of
Sure.
reading time during that intervention time.
Yes.
I mean, in addition to what they're reading in
Right.
the intervention.
Because
So that would kind of be my long term.
Yes.
You should read.
I know.
I just
Take
gotcha.
Dr. John out, put this back on. Because another piece with that is we might not be having quite the lesson progress we need, but yet with Sound Partners in particular, it's expected to only take about 30 minutes. So I was going to say we could buy some time from that, but at the same time we're already having some pacing issues.
Mm-hmm.
So it might just be working with the EAs on how do we increase the urgency and the brisk pace, and maybe it's just that explicitness. So we might want to.
That's where the observation, I think, might help, because
Sure.
I can't, because I am kind of
Right.
trying to listen out of both ears
Right.
at different conversations, so.
And I wonder if the increase in pace would help keep the interest of the students a little bit more, if it's
Yeah.
coming at a quicker rate, if they're, you know, gonna focus a little bit better.
Yeah, I'm not really 100% sure what that issue is, so that would be great.
Yeah, it's something to think about.
Okay. And you're willing to
Yeah.
go do that with the
Mhm.
fidelity checklist?
Sure.
And that way, that might be some good, like you said, input on
Mhm.
if pacing's an issue or not, and
Mhm.
if it isn't, then we gotta think about why aren't the lessons progressing? Is it mastery issues? Is it the behavior piece? You know, how do we need problem solve that way?
And that could be just one of those things in the million things that just got missed because they're both brand new.
Mhm.
They were trained on several interventions,
Mhm.
which was a little confusing for a
Right.
while. It's better now, but it could be just one of those things.
Is there any benefit to, instead of doing, you know, they read one time this week, kind of try and catch them up a little bit with some of that whole group that they've missed, just so that they're ready to pick back up into the flow? Do you think
Well,
they
I'm
would need anything
hoping
like that?
that they don't, because I try to incorporate what we're doing anyway in the
Into
guided
the
reading, so they
guided
should know
Good.
material, and I know that you do the same.
Okay, great.
So I think they should be okay.
Good, okay. And when do we wanna make that schedule change? Might be a little tough today. Maybe it's just maybe we're planned differently. When is a reasonable time frame that we can?
I would prefer if we could start that, let's see, tomorrow's Wednesday, Thursday. I have a 7 in the morning, and it's
I'm not here on Thursday, so.
Friday.
Okay. Is that 10-1 already? 10-2?
No, 10-1 is on Saturday.
Oh,
So
good.
the 30th.
Perfect. Okay.
We have 10 minutes.
Thank you. So I think since we do still have a little extra time, we can kind of think through. You had asked for some ideas about what's a procedure for keeping track of minutes. you threw out an idea of
Have
Mr.
the kids-
Responsible.
Yeah, have a kid. Mikey in that group, and I'm not sure what your other groups are during the day that you're having an issue. There might be somebody in there that
It's kind of like a
Starting the
helper,
timer.
like
Yeah,
an intervention
same.
helper, like you're the
We're
helper
done,
for the
here's
day,
the
it's
timer.
your job to hit the timer.
Mhm.
You know, some of the anecdotal notes that I take have been things like, at some point he'll tell us he likes to come to
We're
read.
going to check back on mastery progress at the next DAB review.
Oh yeah, and I'll look ahead to make sure that gets done.
So we're gonna do a fidelity observation, especially with the two EAs, and see how the pacing's going, if there's any suggestions that could be done there. In terms of the reading mastery group, is there anything we need to consider about, all right, how do we make up if there's attendance issues or things like that? Anything related to that group that?
I don't know that I've had enough, gone in and had enough
To know.
lessons to really, you know, I guess the lessons move pretty slow, so
Mhm.
I can't really say that his
Sure.
attendance, he didn't miss any content, if that makes
Sure.
sense. He's
These are
missed
some-
the practice.
Mhm.
I
Sure.
mean, I'd say that would affect it, but
Okay.
the content probably isn't necessarily the issue.
So we can just check back on,
Okay.
that one during the next hour review meeting too.
Okay.
We're down to 5 minutes.
Thank you. Really take this seriously, I like it.
I know, that's my
Um,
role.
Session minutes, we have an idea for mastery progress, we're gonna check back on. Whole group, we think we've figured out that kink,
Mhm.
and, we will check back at the next hour review meeting, but, I think it might be great if someone can check back even next week, just.
Oh,
All
just
right,
make sure that we
best
get-
laid plans,
Mhm. Yeah.
now let's see how it's actually working.
I don't know if we wanna put on documentation on here too, but Janelle and I were talking yesterday about Mikey
Thank
Mack
you,
and
I forgot.
Lorena. They are struggling with the second grade passage and progress monitoring.
Oh, okay.
They don't, the only words they really know are and I is, the rest are pure guessing
Sure.
or
Mhm.
staring at the word. And so that's kind of been a struggle. We talked about, you know, changing the passage or leaving it. But then we also came up with an idea of just doing fry words back at kindergarten at one of their stations. And
Oh, at a daily basis.
yes, sorry. And then practicing those because it is a norm test that you need to keep it at the second grade, I'm
Mhm.
assuming. So we
But
were trying to
could-
find ways to kind of help
But could
support
we
them.
do, maybe even if it's not kindergarten, but first grade fry words and first grade passages? I mean, is that something we could?
So we could do a survey level assessment, but
Yeah.
if their initial screening percentile, where was that at?
Lorena was the 3rd percentile and Mac and Mikey were the 7th percentile.
So that might be very
Frustrational.
appropriate.
Okay.
With the survey level assessment, we could back it up. And then we use that to determine where is that next appropriate level, right below the average range. And then if that ends up being first grade, then it would be more appropriate to do that. But we always still want like a monthly checkpoint at a second grade level to make sure they're progressing.
So would I have 2 progress monitorings
Yeah.
then on the page? How does that work?
Potentially, yes, but
Okay. So
Can
Janelle,
help
you
them
and
out
I
with-
can.
Well, yeah, actually
Yes.
you set up a different schedule for the on grade level and
Mhm.
one for the below grade level. So we would
So
just
we'll
put
meet later
another
and you
one
can
in.
help me.
Yeah, we'll just put another one in.
perfect, okay. And we'll do the
Um,
survey level assessment first, just to make sure.
Okay.
Yeah, anybody wanna volunteer to do that?
Is that's just for this
Right.
Mike, Lorena, Mac?
Yeah, it's just
for that group.
the
Mhm.
3 of them.
Okay.
If we maybe each took one or something, that would take away least amount of time from each.
Sure.
Each of us?
Mhm.
Okay. That would be helpful. I mean, I'd love to do them all, but I mean, that would probably take me the whole
Mhm.
intervention
Sure.
block
Right,
to
right,
get
right.
all of that done.
Well, if you
Perfect.
just explain it to me, I can do it because I have a high group that I don't have to meet with every day, so I
Okay.
can
Okay.
use
Some of
Okay.
that
some of that
time.
time to do it.
That
Rather than
shared
taking your,
responsibility norm in
your
action,
time.
I like it. Okay, so thanks for bringing that up, cause that is important to make sure we're measuring them at the appropriate level.
And then once
all
a
the progress
month.
monitoring
Okay.
is
On
up and
second
going,
grade,
at least
yes.
for all the kiddos, so that is one extra piece that is accounted for.
So just
Um,
adding the second one would be
Right.
easy to do.
Any other, we'll have principal check back that core has gotten back on, the new schedule. Anything else we need to,
Will you share this with us so we can?
it already is.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wonderful.
Oh, that's what that.
That's what
that's.
that
That document came.
That's what it is.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And then, at the next data review meeting in November, we'll just start with where we left off with these pieces, and then we'll be looking more at that individual student progress monitoring graphs and seeing if there's any individual decisions we may be making in addition to these group adjustments.
Okay.
Any
So
other
yeah, let's get
questions,
that going right
concerns
away so we
happening?
can Look at those.
Nope.
Perfect.
We're good.
Short on time even, this is great.
Great job.
All right,
Awesome.
thank you.
That's fair.